A young nurse donated her own blood to save the life of a dying patient. Unaware he is a billionaire, a week later her life was changed forever. Ashley, a young nurse, had been on her feet all day, exhaustion weighing heavily on her. Just as she was about to take a break, the doors of the ER burst open. A man, badly injured from a car accident, was rushed in. His condition was critical. He had lost a dangerous amount of blood, and the hospital was out of his rare blood type. Without thinking twice, she spoke up. I'm O+, which makes me a universal donor. The whole room went still. The head doctor in the ER turned toward her, his eyes narrowing. Are you sure about this? Ashley swallowed hard, her pulse quickening. Yes, I am. Prep her, the doctor ordered, already moving toward the patient's side. Ashley's heart thudded in her chest as a nurse gently grabbed her arm and led her toward a sterile chair in the corner of the room. Her mind raced as the medical team scrambled to keep the man alive. Machines beeped frantically, and the sound of the ventilator's mechanical hiss filled the room. Blood stained the white sheets beneath him. His breathing was shallow, his face pale and lifeless. Ashley's hands shook as the nurse tied a rubber band tightly around her upper arm. Breathe, Ashley, the nurse whispered. Ashley took a shaky breath. Her eyes drifted toward the man on the stretcher. His face was bruised and swollen, a nasty gash running from his temple to his cheekbone. His dark hair was slick with blood. Despite the severity of his injuries, he looked young, maybe early 30s, and oddly peaceful beneath the chaos surrounding him. The doctor's voice was sharp. We need blood now, or we're going to lose him. Ashley's gaze sharpened. Do it, she said, her voice steady. The nurse slid the needle into her vein. Ashley winced as the sharp sting pierced her skin, but she didn't flinch. A thin line of dark red began flowing down the tube into a collection bag. The nurse attached the line to an 4, and seconds later, Ashley's blood was flowing into the man's body. Come on, the doctor muttered under his breath. Ashley's breathing slowed as she watched the man's chest rise and fall with increasing steadiness. The heart monitor beeped more evenly. The room's tension began to lift, but Ashley's focus never wavered. She watched the color return to his cheeks. His body, which had been limp and lifeless, now showed signs of strength. Ashley's head began to swim. Her vision blurred at the edges as the nurse pressed a cool hand to her shoulder. You need to rest, the nurse whispered. I'm fine, Ashley mumbled, her eyes fluttering closed for a moment. The doctor's voice cut through the haze. We've got him stable. Ashley's body sagged with relief. She barely registered the nurse removing the needle from her arm and pressing a gauze pad to the site. You did it, the nurse said softly. You saved him. Ashley's lips parted as her head dropped back against the chair. Exhaustion wrapped around her like a heavy blanket. The last thing she saw before her eyes closed was the man's chest rising steadily beneath the thin hospital sheet. Ashley stood outside the hospital room door, her heart fluttering with a strange nervousness. It had been a long night, a blur of blood, flashing lights, and the frantic energy of the ER. She had barely processed the gravity of what had happened when she had stumbled to the staff lounge and collapsed into an exhausted sleep. But now, less than 24 hours later, she was being called to room 214, to the man whose life she had saved. Ashley took a breath, adjusting the light blue scrubs that suddenly felt too tight. Her hand hesitated on the doorknob for a moment before she pushed it open and stepped inside. The room was quiet, calm. Soft sunlight filtered through the half-open blinds, casting pale golden beams across the crisp white sheets and the sterile silver of the four-stand. The rhythmic beep of the heart monitor was steady, soothing even. A light breeze stirred the edges of the white curtain near the window. James Whitmore lay in the hospital bed, his dark hair tousled, his strong features softened by a faint bruise on his temple and a cut near his cheekbone. His eyes were closed at first, but as the door creaked open, his eyelids fluttered. His gaze lifted toward her, a slow, sleepy warmth spreading across his face when he saw her. Ashley froze. For a moment, she forgot how to breathe. James Whitmore, billionaire, CEO, a name that practically ruled the financial world, splashed across business magazines and whispered about at high-profile charity galas. She had known who he was the moment his name was added to the intake form the night before. But seeing him awake, looking at her with those soft green eyes, felt surreal. You saved my life, he said softly, his voice low and a little rough. Ashley's throat tightened. She gave a small, polite smile, instinctively brushing off the comment. I was just doing my job. James's gaze sharpened. His eyes, even under the dim hospital lights, seemed to glow with quiet intensity. It wasn't just your job, he said. You gave me your own blood. Ashley shifted uncomfortably, brushing a loose strand of blonde hair behind her ear. Well, you needed it. James smiled faintly. His hand, resting on the white sheet, lifted slightly toward her. His fingers curled, almost an invitation. Ashley hesitated. Then, carefully, she stepped closer and took his hand. His palm was warm beneath hers, his grip surprisingly strong despite the 4 taped to the back of his hand. Thank you, James said again, his thumb brushing lightly against her knuckles. Ashley's cheeks warmed. You don't have to thank me. James chuckled softly. Actually, I think I do. A brief silence settled between them, not uncomfortable, but charged. Ashley's gaze drifted toward the window, where sunlight was cutting through the thin curtain, casting delicate patterns on the wall. She felt James watching her, studying her. You were brave, he said suddenly. Ashley shook her head. I was terrified. You didn't look terrified. Ashley's gaze lowered to their joined hands. I guess I didn't have time to think about it. James's smile widened just a little. Still, not everyone would have stepped forward like that. Ashley finally allowed herself to meet his eyes fully. You would have done the same, she said quietly. James's expression darkened slightly, the shadow of some unspoken thought flickering across his face. He didn't respond, but his thumb brushed her hand again, a quiet reassurance. You're famous, you know, Ashley said, trying to lighten the mood. James Whitmore, the golden boy of finance. James's smile tightened at the edges. Famous isn't always a good thing. Ashley arched an eyebrow. No, money complicates things. Ashley hesitated. Does it? James's smile didn't reach his eyes. Let's just say, it makes it hard to know who to trust. Ashley considered that for a moment. Then, with quiet certainty, she said, You can trust me. James's gaze sharpened. His hand tightened around hers. I know. A silence passed between them. A weightless, fragile sort of connection that felt too new, too delicate to name. Ashley's heart fluttered strangely as James's eyes lingered on hers, searching her face as if memorizing every detail. Will you sit for a while? He asked softly. Ashley hesitated. I'm still on shift. James's eyes flicked toward the door, then back to her. Just for a minute? Ashley's lips twitched. I guess I can spare a minute. James smiled. Ashley pulled a chair close and sat down beside the bed. Their hands remained linked as James's head sank back into the pillow. His eyes began to droop, exhaustion tugging at his expression. You should rest, Ashley said softly. James's gaze lingered on her. I will, if you stay. Ashley's heart skipped. Okay. James's eyes closed. His breathing slowed. Ashley watched the slow rise and fall of his chest, her thumb absently stroking his hand. She stayed until his breathing evened out completely and the heart monitor beeped in a slow, steady rhythm. Ashley visited James every day after that. At first, it was professional, checking his vitals, adjusting the 4, making sure his stitches were healing properly. But soon, their conversation stretched longer and longer. James would ask about her life, how long she had been a nurse, where she had grown up, why she had chosen the medical field. Ashley, in turn, learned that James had taken over his father's company at just 24, that he had worked tirelessly for nearly a decade to expand it, that he barely remembered what it felt like to take a day off. I didn't realize how tired I was until I couldn't move anymore, James admitted one day, his hand resting lazily on the blanket as Ashley checked his 4-line. You don't strike me as someone who slows down. James smiled faintly. I don't. Until now. Ashley smoothed the blanket near his shoulder. Maybe you needed the break. Maybe. His eyes lifted toward hers. Or maybe I needed something or someone to remind me what's important. Ashley's heart fluttered. A week later, James was discharged. Ashley stood at the nurse's station, watching as he signed the paperwork with his right hand, his left arm still in a sling. James approached her afterward. His expression was softer than usual, less guarded. So? James's eyes twinkled. I guess this is goodbye. Ashley smiled faintly. It doesn't have to be. James's smile widened. Good. Because I was hoping I could take you to dinner sometime. Ashley's eyes widened. James? No pressure, he added quickly. But I figure you already know all my weaknesses. Might as well give you the advantage. Ashley laughed softly. Dinner sounds nice. James grinned. Great. He hesitated. Then, impulsively, he leaned forward and kissed her cheek. Ashley's breath hitched. Her skin tingled where his lips had touched. I'll call you, James said. Ashley's gaze followed him as he walked down the hallway, disappearing around the corner. Her heart was still racing long after he was gone. Ashley sat cross-legged on the small couch in her apartment, a chipped mug of lukewarm coffee balanced precariously on the armrest. It was a quiet afternoon. Sunlight filtered weakly through the thin white curtains, casting faint shadows on the hardwood floor. Ashley had just finished a grueling week of double shifts at the hospital and was finally allowing herself a rare moment of rest. A small pile of unopened mail sat on the coffee table in front of her, mostly bills and promotional flyers she had been ignoring for days. With a sigh, she picked up the stack, flipping through it mindlessly. Electricity bill. Credit card offer. Junk mail. Then she saw it. A cream-colored envelope with no return address. The paper was heavy, expensive, not the kind of stationery used for utility bills or junk mail. Her name was handwritten and neat, slanted script across the front, Ashley Morgan. Frowning, Ashley tore the envelope open. A single sheet of thick paper was folded neatly inside. A smaller slip of paper fluttered to the ground as she unfolded the letter. Ashley's eyes dropped to her lap. It was a check. Her breath hitched. She picked it up, fingers trembling as her eyes scanned the figures printed clearly in black ink. $2 million. Ashley's heart stopped. Her pulse roared in her ears as her gaze darted back to the letter. Hands shaking, she unfolded it and read the simple note inside. For saving my life. Thank you, James. Ashley's mouth fell open. Her eyes darted from the check to the letter, then back again. This can't be real. Her hand flew to her mouth as a strangled noise escaped her throat. Her chest tightened painfully, and her eyes blurred with tears. Her hands trembled so badly that the check nearly slipped from her fingers. At that moment, the door to her apartment burst open. Ash? What's going on? Her roommate, Emily, stepped into the room, her dark hair pulled into a messy bun and a concerned crease etched between her brows. Ashley tried to speak, but no words came out. Her hand pressed against her mouth, and tears spilled freely down her cheeks. Emily rushed toward her, dropping her bag on the floor. Ashley. She crouched down in front of her, gripping her shoulders. What happened? Are you okay? Ashley shook her head weakly and held out the check with trembling fingers. Emily's eyes widened as she took the slip of paper. She stared at it for a moment, blinking rapidly. Then her mouth dropped open. Is this real? Emily's voice was barely a whisper. Ashley nodded slowly. I think it is. Emily's eyes darted toward the letter still clutched in Ashley's other hand. Who is James? Ashley exhaled shakily. James Whitmore. Emily's head jerked up. Wait. James Whitmore? As in billionaire James Whitmore? Ashley nodded. Emily's gaze shot back down to the check, her eyes comically wide. Holy crap, Ashley. Ashley's breath hitched again. I don't know what to do. Emily shook her head in disbelief. You saved his life, didn't you? Ashley's mind flashed back to the ER, the cold, sterile smell of antiseptic, the frantic beeping of the heart monitor, the sting of the needle as her blood flowed into James's veins. I just did my job, Ashley whispered. Emily scoffed. Yeah, well, apparently saving a billionaire's life comes with benefits. Ashley's heart hammered painfully in her chest. Her gaze fell back to the check. The sheer weight of it, $2 million, was enough to make her head spin. I can't keep this, Ashley said suddenly, her voice cracking. Emily's head snapped up. What do you mean you can't keep it? Ashley's hands curled around the edges of the check. It's too much. I wasn't expecting this. Emily sat down beside her, her expression softening. Ash, he's a billionaire. $2 million to him is probably like $20 to us. Ashley swallowed hard. It's not about the money. Then what is it about? Ashley's eyes filled with tears again. I didn't save him because he's rich. I saved him because I couldn't stand there and watch him die. Emily's hand closed gently over Ashley's. I know that. And so does he. Ashley's breath shuddered. She set the check down carefully on the coffee table, as though it might shatter if handled too roughly. What am I supposed to do with it? Ashley whispered. Emily's gaze softened. Keep it. Ashley shook her head. I can't. Then donate it, Emily said. Or invest it. Or use it to pay off your student loans. Hell, buy a house. Start a charity. Do whatever you want with it. Ashley's lips pressed into a thin line. I don't want him to think I did it for the money. Emily's eyes softened. Ashley, I think James knows exactly why you did it. Ashley's heart squeezed painfully at the thought of James's face, the way he had looked at her the day after the surgery, his eyes filled with quiet gratitude. Her thumb brushed over the edge of the check. $2 million. Enough to change her life. Enough to secure her future. And yet, Ashley bit her lip. I need to see him. Emily's eyebrows lifted. James? Ashley nodded. Emily grinned knowingly. You know where he is? Ashley's heart thudded painfully. Yeah. Emily stood and clapped her hands. Then what are you waiting for? Ashley's gaze drifted back toward the letter. James's handwriting was neat, precise, deliberate. He had chosen his words carefully. For saving my life. Ashley's chest ached. Slowly, she stood and crossed the room. She slipped the letter back into the envelope and folded the check carefully alongside it. Then she placed them both into the drawer of the small side table near the door. Ashley turned toward Emily, her lips curving into a soft smile. I think I need to thank him in person. Emily's eyes sparkled. Yeah, I think you do. Ashley grabbed her jacket and her keys. As she opened the door and stepped out into the warm afternoon sunlight, her heart was racing, but this time, it wasn't from fear. It was from possibility. The next day, after Ashley received the mail, she decided to meet him in person to thank him. Ashley's hands trembled as she clutched the letter and the check in her bag. Her heart was still racing from the shock of seeing those zeros on the piece of paper, $2 million. She had barely slept the night before, her mind spinning with disbelief and confusion. Why would someone give her so much money for simply doing her job? Saving lives was what she had signed up for when she became a nurse. It was her duty, her calling. But this was something else entirely. After spending most of the night staring at the ceiling, Ashley had made up her mind. She needed to see him, to thank him face to face, and to understand why he would do something so extraordinary. So, she called the number at the bottom of the letter and was surprised when a smooth, calm voice answered. Mr. Whitmore's office, the assistant said. Ashley's mouth went dry. Oh, this is Ashley. Ashley Carter. I wanted to speak with Mr. Whitmore about the letter he sent me. There was a brief pause, and then the assistant's tone softened. Ah, Miss Carter. Mr. Whitmore was hoping you'd call. He's available tomorrow morning for coffee. Would that work for you? Ashley's pulse quickened. Yes, that would be great. Thank you. Now, standing outside a quiet, upscale cafe the next morning, Ashley took a deep breath and smoothed down the hem of her simple gray sweater. She felt underdressed against the backdrop of the sleek, modern cafe with its black-framed windows and polished gold fixtures. She glanced at her reflection in the glass, her chestnut brown hair pulled into a neat ponytail, her eyes slightly shadowed from lack of sleep. Pushing open the door, Ashley stepped inside. The rich scent of freshly brewed coffee mixed with the soft hum of conversation. She spotted James almost instantly, seated at a small table near the window. He was dressed casually in a dark blue sweater and tailored slacks, but there was an effortless elegance to the way he held himself. His dark hair was neatly combed back, and the bruising on his face had mostly faded, leaving only a faint mark along his temple. When he saw her, his eyes brightened. He stood and smiled warmly. Ashley. Her stomach flipped. Hi, she said, her voice almost breathless. He gestured to the seat across from him. Please, sit. Ashley slid into the chair, suddenly hyper-aware of how close they were sitting. James studied her with quiet intensity, his dark eyes soft but curious. I hope you don't mind that I reached out, he said. I had to thank you properly. Ashley shook her head. No, I'm the one who should be thanking you. That letter, the check, it was too much. You didn't have to do that. James's brow furrowed. Ashley, you saved my life. She smiled shyly, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. That's my job. No, James said, his gaze sharpening. It was more than that. You didn't hesitate. You put yourself at risk for someone you didn't even know. That means something. Ashley's cheeks flushed. You really didn't have to give me money, though. I wanted to, he said simply. But I have a feeling you haven't cashed the check yet. Ashley's lips curved into a small smile. It's sitting in my drawer. James chuckled. I thought so. He leaned forward, his elbows resting on the table. Ashley, I know this might be forward, but I'm curious. What would you do with it? Ashley's breath hitched. With the money? He nodded. She hesitated, feeling vulnerable. But something about the way he looked at her, patient, genuinely interested, made her feel like she could tell him the truth. I've always wanted to open a small clinic, she admitted. Somewhere in the city, maybe on the east side, where people don't have easy access to healthcare. There are so many people who can't afford medical care, who don't have insurance. I see them every day at the hospital. They come in too late, and we do our best, but it's not enough. James's gaze softened. That's incredible. Ashley gave a small laugh, shaking her head. It's just a dream. Why? Her eyes lifted to meet his. Because dreams like that take money, a lot of it. And people like me, we don't usually have that kind of money. James's lips curled into a faint smile. Well, maybe now you do. Ashley's eyes widened. I can't. Why not? Because it's too much. You don't even know me. James's expression turned serious. I know enough. I know you're selfless and brave. And I know you have a heart big enough to want to help people who might never be able to repay you. Ashley's chest tightened. She didn't know how to respond to that. A quiet tension settled between them, the kind that made her heart race in a way that had nothing to do with nerves. James's expression softened. Ashley, if that's your dream, let me help you make it happen. She shook her head, but there was no conviction in it. It doesn't feel right. Then let me make you a deal, James said, his eyes glinting mischievously. You let me invest in your clinic, as a partner, not just as a donor. You take the money, but you let me be involved in making it work. Ashley blinked. You want to be part of it. I want to help you succeed. Ashley's heart pounded. She studied his face, trying to detect any hint of insincerity, but there was none. His gaze was steady, patient, and unwavering. She took a shaky breath. This is crazy. Maybe, James said, his smile widening. But the best things in life usually are. Ashley laughed softly, shaking her head. You're serious about this? Dead serious. Their eyes met, and for a moment, the rest of the cafe seemed to fade away. Ashley could feel the weight of his attention, the warmth behind his eyes, the quiet sincerity in his voice. Okay, she whispered. James's smile deepened. He reached across the table, his hand brushing against hers. Ashley didn't pull away. Good, he said softly. Then it's a deal. Ashley's heart was still racing, but it wasn't from nerves anymore. It was from the quiet, thrilling sense that maybe, just maybe, her life was about to change in more ways than one. Ashley smoothed down the front of her cream-colored blouse, her hands trembling slightly as she stood outside the grand conference room. The polished mahogany doors towered over her, and through the frosted glass panels, she could see the silhouettes of people shifting inside, investors, medical professionals, and influential figures she had only ever seen in news articles and business magazines. Her heart hammered against her ribcage. What was she doing here? Just a few weeks ago, she had been pulling long shifts at the hospital, focused only on keeping her patients alive. Now, she was standing on the verge of something she had only dreamed about, opening a clinic to serve the underserved communities in the city. And all of it was because of them. Relax, James's smooth voice pulled her from her thoughts. Ashley turned to find him standing beside her, dressed impeccably in a tailored navy suit. His dark eyes held warmth and quiet reassurance. He smiled softly, the corners of his mouth lifting in that way that always made her heart skip. I can't believe you set this up, she whispered. You deserve this, James said, his tone serious. They need to hear your vision. Just speak from the heart. They'll see what I see. Ashley swallowed hard. What if I screw it up? James's gaze softened. You won't. He gently placed his hand on her back, guiding her toward the doors. Just be you. Before she could respond, the heavy doors opened with a quiet creak. A man in a sharp, gray suit gestured toward them. They're ready for you. Ashley's breath hitched. Her feet felt frozen to the floor, but James's hand remained steady at her back. You've got this, he whispered. Drawing in a shaky breath, Ashley nodded and stepped inside. The conference room was vast and sleek, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline. Sunlight poured through the glass, casting a golden glow across the long marble table. At least a dozen people were seated around it. Men and women in business attire, their expressions serious and calculating. Some of them held notepads, others had tablets open in front of them. All eyes turned toward Ashley as she stepped toward the head of the table. James strode confidently to her side and cleared his throat. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here today. His voice was smooth and commanding, effortlessly drawing attention. I've gathered you here because I want you to meet someone extraordinary, the woman who saved my life. Ashley's cheeks flushed. James's eyes gleamed as he looked toward her, pride radiating from him. This is Ashley Carter, James continued. Not only is she an exceptional nurse, But she has a vision, one that could change lives. And I believe it's a vision worth investing in. James's hand brushed lightly against Ashley's arm as he stepped aside. Ashley. A tense silence settled over the room as Ashley stepped toward the table. Her throat tightened. She could feel the weight of their gazes, the scrutiny, the quiet judgment. You've got this. Ashley took a deep breath. Her eyes drifted toward James, standing at the edge of the room. His expression was steady, encouraging. She exhaled and began. I've been a nurse for over 5 years, she said, her voice soft but steady. Every day, I see patients who have nowhere else to turn. They wait until their health deteriorates because they can't afford care. They rely on overcrowded emergency rooms because they don't have primary care doctors. I've watched too many people slip through the cracks of our healthcare system. A woman in a gray suit leaned forward, brows raised. Ashley's voice gained strength. I want to change that. I want to open a small community clinic, a place where people can walk in without fear of how much it will cost. A place where patients can get regular checkups, medications, mental health support, and preventive care before it's too late. Several of the investors exchanged glances. Ashley's hands curled tightly at her sides, but she pressed on. I know it's ambitious, she said, her voice softening. And I know it won't be easy. But I'm not asking you to invest in an idea. I'm asking you to invest in people, in families, in a healthier future for this city. Ashley's gaze swept across the room, her heart pounding. She braced herself for skepticism, for polite rejection, but instead, she saw quiet admiration on several faces. The woman in gray nodded thoughtfully. An older man scribbled something down on his notepad. James smiled from the back of the room. Thank you for your time, Ashley finished. I hope you'll consider helping me make this happen. A moment of silence hung in the air. Then, the woman in gray leaned back in her chair, smiling faintly. Impressive, she murmured. Other murmurs of agreement followed. James stepped forward, his smile widening. I think they're interested, he whispered to Ashley. Ashley let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Her legs felt shaky beneath her, but James's steady presence grounded her. As the meeting wrapped up, several investors approached her, shaking her hand and asking questions. Ashley answered as best as she could, her confidence growing with every exchange. Finally, as the last person left the room, Ashley turned toward James. Her heart was still racing, but now it wasn't from fear. I can't believe that just happened, she breathed. James stepped closer. Believe it. His gaze softened. You did that. All I did was get them in the room. You convinced them. Ashley's lips parted, but before she could respond, James brushed his hand gently against her arm. You've got this, he said again, his voice low and steady. Ashley smiled, her cheeks warm. Thank you, she whispered. James's eyes lingered on hers, his expression soft. Anytime. Ashley took a shaky breath and turned toward the door, her heart swelling with newfound confidence. As she walked away, she felt James's gaze following her, steady and proud. Ashley stood at the edge of the construction site, the bright afternoon sun casting a golden glow over the skeletal framework of the building. She adjusted the hard hat on her head, feeling its weight settle awkwardly against her hair. Around her, the sound of construction filled the air, hammers striking metal, the low hum of heavy machinery, the chatter of workers calling to one another. Dust floated lazily through the warm breeze. James stood beside her, hands tucked casually into the pockets of his tailored gray slacks. Unlike Ashley, he looked completely at ease, even with the bright yellow hard hat perched a little crooked on his dark hair. You look like you belong here, James teased, his mouth curving into a playful smile. Ashley shot him a sideways glance, suppressing a smile. Oh, yeah? And what makes you think that? James's eyes sparkled. The way you're squinting at the blueprint like you're about to give the foreman some pointers. Ashley laughed. I'm just trying to figure out where the exam rooms are supposed to be. James leaned closer, his shoulder brushing against hers. It's all going to come together, he said softly. Sooner than you think. Ashley's gaze swept over the site. The exposed steel beams, the partially framed walls, the stacks of drywall waiting to be installed. It was real now. This wasn't just an idea sketched out on a napkin or a hopeful conversation over coffee. It was happening. You really think so? Ashley murmured. James's eyes softened. I know so. A gust of wind stirred the dust at their feet. Ashley tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear and sighed. It just feels overwhelming. What if it doesn't work? What if people don't show up? James's smile faded. He turned to face her fully. Ashley, you have no idea how much you've already accomplished. This place, He gestured toward the construction site. This is going to save lives. You're going to give people hope. Ashley's eyes dropped to the ground. It's just hard to believe sometimes. James stepped closer. His hand brushed against hers. Just a light touch, tentative, before he laced his fingers through hers. Ashley's breath hitched. Her gaze flicked toward their joined hands. You didn't just save my life, Ashley, James said, his voice low and steady. You changed it. Ashley's eyes lifted to his. Her heart thundered in her chest as his dark gaze locked onto hers. James, she whispered, her throat tightening. James's thumb brushed across her knuckles, sending warmth spiraling up her arm. Because of you, I want to be better. To do more. And not just for myself, for others. You showed me that. Ashley's eyes welled with tears. She tried to blink them back, but one slipped free and rolled down her cheek. James reached up and gently brushed it away with the pad of his thumb. His hand lingered against her cheek, his touch soft and reverent. Ashley's breath shuddered. The sounds of the construction site seemed to blur into the background. All she could hear was the steady rhythm of her own heartbeat and the warmth in James's voice. You're incredible, James whispered. Ashley swallowed hard. Her lips parted as James leaned in, his face inches from hers. His breath warmed her cheek. Ashley's hand tightened around his. She didn't pull away. For a moment, they stood there, suspended between the past and whatever lay ahead. The tension between them was palpable, a quiet, humming electricity. James's gaze dropped to her lips. Ashley's breath hitched as he leaned closer, his forehead brushing gently against hers. The sounds of the construction site seemed to fade completely as Ashley closed her eyes, her heart pounding. And then slowly, deliberately, James pressed his lips to her forehead. His hand tightened around hers. Ashley's eyes fluttered open as James pulled back just enough to meet her gaze again. You've got this, he whispered. Ashley's lips trembled into a smile. I know. James's smile widened. He squeezed her hand, and Ashley didn't let go as they turned back toward the construction site. The future lay before them, unfinished and uncertain, but for the first time, Ashley wasn't afraid. Months later, the grand opening of the clinic was nothing short of magical. The late afternoon sun bathed the modern glass-fronted building in soft golden light. A crowd had gathered outside, a mixture of press, local officials, and families from the community. Children held colorful balloons, and photographers adjusted their cameras, capturing every angle of the moment. Ashley stood at the center of it all, a confident glow radiating from her. Her light blue dress fluttered gently in the breeze, and her eyes shimmered with quiet pride. James stood beside her, looking effortlessly sharp in a tailored navy suit. His hand rested lightly on the small of her back, steady and reassuring. A large red ribbon stretched across the entrance of the clinic. The mayor handed Ashley a pair of silver scissors. Ashley took a breath, her hand steady as she raised the scissors. James leaned toward her. You ready? Ashley smiled. I was born ready. With a smooth snip, the ribbon fell away. The crowd erupted into applause. Ashley's heart hammered in her chest as people cheered and cameras flashed. Reporters pushed forward, microphones raised. Ashley, one called out, how does it feel to have made such an impact? Ashley's gaze shifted toward James. He was watching her with quiet admiration, his dark eyes soft with pride. She smiled. All it took was one act of kindness. James's expression warmed, his smile deepening. The ceremony eventually wound down as guests trickled away, and the staff began preparing the clinic for its first official day of operation. That evening, Ashley and James found themselves sitting on a park bench overlooking the sparkling city skyline. The hum of traffic floated up from the streets below, mingling with the cool evening air. Ashley sighed, resting her head against James's shoulder. His arm slid around her, pulling her close. You did it, James said quietly. We did it, Ashley corrected, her voice soft. James smiled, resting his cheek lightly against the top of her head. So, what's next? Ashley's eyes drifted toward the horizon, the city lights reflecting in her gaze. Let's find out together, she whispered. James pressed a gentle kiss to her temple. The camera slowly zoomed out as they sat close, the city lights sparkling behind them, two hearts intertwined, a future full of endless possibility. If you enjoyed this story about Ashley and James, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more heartwarming and inspiring content. Your support helps us create more amazing stories like this one. We'd love to hear your thoughts on how Ashley and James's story unfolded. Did you find it touching? Were you satisfied with how it all ended? Let us know what you think in the comments below. Also, rate the story on a scale of 1 to 10. We're curious to see how much you liked it. And don't forget to mention where you're watching from. It's always exciting to see how far these stories reach. Thank you for watching and stay tuned for more.